PETA investigated the crocodile and alligator skin trade in Zimbabwe and the United States. These animals are barbarically slaughtered to make the most expensive accessories for the luxury market, including the Hermès Birkin bag.
Bitch, that's not a Birkin. The look you thought was working.
Is that ostrich or gator?
Oh, that is not a Birkin.
PETA's investigators traveled to Africa to expose how these luxury items are produced.
My name is Sydney. For as long as I can remember, I've lived in a small concrete pit with dozens of other crocodiles. Our pen was dark and crowded, and our pool of water was often murky and filled with poop. There was no room to swim or play. Everyone was agitated and stressed from being crammed so closely together. When we got injured or sick, no one took care of us.
The alligators at Lone Star were confined to dank, dark pits. Many of the animals had raw, damaged skin around their jaws and received no veterinary care.
As the humans approached me, I heard one of them say that it would take 3 or more of us crocodiles to make just one expensive bag.
This is Badenga, a massive factory farm in Zimbabwe, as well as a major supplier to an Hermès-owned tannery.
Viruses that can originate in our dirty pens could cause the next pandemic.
Crocodile oil is now being recognised as an anti-aging miracle oil.
The beauty of it is crocodile oil has the same composition as human skin oil. So people hear oil and they think, oh gosh, like it's, I don't want it to sit on my skin, it's going to be greasy. And crocodile oil absolutely is not at all, because it's got that same composition. It sinks into the skin, it leaves it dewy, and just that beautiful glow without the grease.
These infections? Alligators usually don't have infections.
The animals and people living in the Cape Fear River watershed are still haunted by Gen X, a pollutant that a chemical manufacturing company released in the water for decades. Gen X is part of the PFAS family, a group of chemicals that scientists are sounding the alarm on. They're called forever chemicals because they don't break down in the environment, and they are in tons of consumer products, from Teflon pans to waterproof boots to makeup. The alligators at Greenfield Lake are downriver from the plant that manufactured and released those chemicals for years. And that's why Scott and his team are checking on them.
We're looking at levels of PFAS and looking to see if there's any health effects on the alligators. Alligators are a really great model for us. They have an immune system that's very similar to humans. They've been in the water now since the beginning of PFAS manufacture and discharge in North Carolina, and we think that's a really good historical model to look at for potential health effects.
Of course, it's not just alligators that are reacting to PFAS exposure. These chemicals are ubiquitous in the US. Most of us have it in our bloodstream. Researchers found that exposure to PFAS can put people at risk for an array of health problems, including cancer, thyroid diseases, and immune disorders.
Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me. Today I want to dive into the topic of crocodile farming, a pure evil deep dive into the crocodile farming for fashion, luxury fashion files, deep dive, capitalism, true crime, pollution, conservation, etc. On top of talking about how crocodilians are used in the fashion industry, I also want to talk about alligator wrestling attractions as well, and that's going to be at the end of the video, so yeah. All my YouTube videos related to this topic will be linked down in the YouTube video description of this video down below for more, as well as shown on the screen right now if you'd like to check them out. So let's get started into this YouTube video. The factory farming of the world's largest reptiles, crocodiles, for luxury designer bourgeoisie fashion is a devastating wildlife protection crisis. Crocodiles have been on Earth for more than 100 million years. They play an important role in their ecosystems, maintaining the rich biodiversity and productivity of wetlands. Today, these ancient reptiles are being factory farmed and slaughtered to satisfy the desires of a lucrative, rich luxury leather trade. Their skins are used for expensive designer handbags and accessories that are sold for $10,000 to over $100,000 by billion-dollar multi-million-dollar fashion houses around the globe, fashion companies. While the crocodile skin industry claims to exist for the sake of wildlife conservation, this is little more than a capitalism greenwashing tactic. Just plain old green capitalism used to retain the industry's social license in order to continue profiting from the exploitation of these prehistoric creatures, thinking and feeling creatures. Tragically, there are now more crocodiles living in confinement and misery on Australian factory farms than in their natural habitat. This is not wildlife conservation. Crocodiles have traditionally been thought of as unfeeling creatures, but a growing body of scientific evidence and statistics refutes this idea. Despite their hardened appearances, crocodiles are sentient, smart animals, just as deserving as dignity and respect as any other species. Crocodiles communicate with each other in complex ways, some of which we have yet to fully understand. The enjoyment crocodiles experience through play is indicative of their high intelligence status.
It's funny because they're a true operating farm. So when they call themselves the Crocodile Farm, they're making belts and wallets and purses and selling meat. And so to them, a really big male isn't a big deal because they're not significantly in the tourism industry. Nobody's coming to look at this 15-foot crocodile.
It's a small female crocodile named Sydney.
If you saw him out sunning, you'd see him next to her. And so I really thought, well, if we get a female, we want this one that he spends a lot of time with because we want to make sure that they're getting along in our situation. Everything's going to be new. We want everything to be as comfortable as possible. But it wasn't an easy sell because buying a big male, like I said, they could replace him with another male. But when you got a good producing female, you don't just sell those off. So we actually ended up having to negotiate harder for Sydney than we did for Maximo. He'd be in the shadow of the pool as much as possible, and he'd try not to let himself really be seen by visitors. He wasn't sitting in front of the glass or out on land like we expected.
He wouldn't eat, he was just very depressed.
And really, I think the thing that finally made Maximo somewhat comfortable about the trip is we let Sydney out. So I think that was a nice first step in keeping him comfortable is here's your honey, and everybody came together, everybody's fine.
I think there's a definite difference when you have the fact that Maximo was brought here with a mate. I think it makes his attitude different. I'm certain that it's a positive thing, but it may not always be a positive thing for keepers.
The crocodile species exploited and slaughtered for skin production in Australia is the saltwater crocodile, and in Africa it's the Nile crocodile. During World War II, powerful rifles that were capable of killing crocodiles and penetrating their skin, something earlier gun ammunition was unable to do, became readily available. Furthermore, political unrest in Africa halted the regular supply of crocodile skins. Increasing the international demand in combination with these factors presented a perfect market for Australia to begin killing native crocodiles and selling their skin for profit internationally. In the 1950s and 60s, killing crocodiles became so intensified that the crocodilian species was almost driven to near extinction. In the 1970s, crocodiles were afforded a selection of protections in order to conserve the just 3,000 crocodiles in the wild in the Northern Territory who were facing a very real threat and risk of full-on extinction. Since the seasoning off of hunting crocodiles in the wild, their populations have increased to 100,000 across Australia. Though the crocodile industry claims the increase in population numbers is due to the introduction of factory farming crocodiles, analysis of raising populations over several years shows that populations were already beginning to grow and increasing at a similar rate to that after seeing the introduction of commercial farming. While the crocodile industry's main revenue stream is the production of skins for the fashion industry, crocodile farming also generates revenue from meat and tourism. By 2002, it was estimated that there were over 68,000 crocodiles on 13 farms, almost all of which are intensive production systems, some with maintaining capitalism tourism element to increase overall capitalism profits. Australia accounts for 60% of the global trade in crocodile skins, 2/3 of which come from the Northern Territory, the largest producer and dominant supplier of crocodile skins worldwide. There are 13 known commercial crocodile farms, and 5 are known to be owned and controlled and operated by luxury million-dollar fashion house Hermès, and several others by Louis Vuitton. Despite the industry and government's assistance of high animal welfare standards and wildlife conservation practices, the commercial crocodile factory farming industry is rooted in exploitation, deprivation, confinement, and cruelty. The reality is, crocodiles are living miserably in tiny barren pens with very little water that doesn't resemble anything of their natural habitat, and under the current code of practice, it is not even required they be afforded the length of their own body of space to live in. Today, Australia's saltwater crocodiles are bred in captivity or taken from the wild to be raised in factory farms in the Northern Territory of Australia. Approximately 90,000 wild eggs are allowed to be taken from nests annually. More than 10,000 crocodiles are killed each year for their skins. In 2021, Farm Transparency Project released vision from 30% of the crocodile farms in the Northern Territory of Australia, revealing a horrifying reality for saltwater crocodiles. As juveniles, crocodiles are kept in crowded groups housing until they are moved to solitary concrete pens or wire cages that replicate nothing and resemble nothing of their natural habitats. Designed purely around keeping the skins blemish free, the industry refers to these as grow-up pens, and they are mostly concrete with limited water supply. Farming methods aside, this industry can never be an ethical one because it requires animals to be killed needlessly for rich people, aka the bourgeoisie catless pigs, fashion accessories such as, rich designer handbags and luxury suitcases. Despite crocodiles having a natural lifespan of over 80 plus years, the crocodile industry just kills them at 2 to 3 years of age to be turned into luxury fashion items sold to rich catless pigs on the market. Footage released by Farm Transparency Project reveals crocodiles being electrocuted in their pens, dragged out as their bodies convulse, a bolt gun shot through the tops of their heads before a knife is used to sever their spinal cord, and a rod is forced into the incision to scramble their brains like a fried egg. Some crocodilians were found to be breathing rapidly and even trying to stand up for up to a minute after this excruciating, painful ordeal. During a PETA investigation, documented the treatment of animals at Pangolia Crocodile Farm, one of Africa's Zimbabwe's largest Nile crocodile enterprises, which houses roughly 100,000 Nile crocodiles at 3 separate facilities. Using an undercover investigator, PETA found that allegedly, according to PETA, Pangolin also supplies skins to Hermès in France to be used for Birkin bags and Kelly handbags, which are sold for as much as $50,000 each. A rich luxury, each bag requires 2 to 3 crocodile skins. The average person could never afford these products. It highlights a level of inequality when we are selling our native wildlife biodiversity skins for handbags that retails for tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we have people living below the poverty line. At the nearby Nirwaki farm, crocodiles are bred and killed in a similar manner. Here, 36,000 reptiles live in dirty pools of water without sunlight or emergency veterinary health care. Newly hatched crocodiles are transferred into separate holding facility areas so that mature females can begin their reproductive cycle as quickly as possible. The reptiles at these farms are also fed an all-vegetable diet. This makes them lean and improves the quality of their skins. The farm's site administrator, according to Minu Mazaski, head of marine biology with the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species in Southern Africa, this diet is unhealthy since crocodiles are naturally carnivorous animals and only eat meat. This is a painful experiment for the crocodiles, a painful science experiment. Denying them a meat diet is improper and cruel. With crocodile farming, a huge demand for water and land management of water waste pollution from tanning, and the risk of disease that comes from keeping these animals in intensive captivity as well. As with other skins transferred into materials for use in fashion industry, crocodile skins must be tanned. Without tanning, all animal skins would rot. The process exists to make something organic, skin, inorganic, leather, so that products can last a very long time. However, this process can render skins non-biodegradable even when vegetable tan is used. Crocodile skins are tougher than other animal skins for use for leather, and as a result, this vegetable skin, tanning practice doesn't really work and is not possible, with chromium being used instead. The vast majority of all leather is tanned with chromium, which is highly carcinogen and dangerous to human health, and also dangerous when polluting natural environments. The tanning process is also water-intensive and wasteful, with gases, liquid, and solid waste being produced. Pollution caused by tanneries using this and other harmful substances can result in the contamination of waterways, negative health impacts for both wildlife and human communities, and the killing of plant life, as well as decreased soil fertility. Indigenous communities and crocodiles. The crocodile skin trade and supporters of it continually attempt to use indigenous peoples and their jobs within the industry as a justification for the continued killing of these reptiles without amplifying any indigenous voices. While indigenous perspectives are not monolithic as with any community, it is important that these claims be balanced. Australia's commercial crocodile skin trade highlights the livelihood benefits they provide to Aboriginal communities in rural areas. Though most of the profit from these crocodile farms and these systems goes to non-Indigenous people, Aboriginal people are often employed in the egg harvesting portion of the trade, which is extremely dangerous given the potential for crocodile attacks from defending mother crocodiles. Payment of as little as 20 AUD per egg is paid to these harvesters, while skin from the crocodiles is made into products sold for $10,000s of dollars to companies. Totem animals are traditionally not killed, worn, or eaten by their people, but protected. For the Lagaria people in Darwin, the crocodile is their totem. While indigenous perspectives vary, the purely profit-driven view of crocodiles as pure commodities is out of element with traditional respect for animals as felling beings on shared land. With more crocodiles living in confinement in factory farms than in their natural habitat in Australia, it is pretty clear that the crocodile farming industry is not for the good of the animals at all. Crocodiles deserve to live freely on their native lands in safety. Their protection cannot be based upon financially incentivizing their ongoing existence through exploitation, confinement, and slaughter. It is unethical to keep a species in existence purely to profit from them in this way. Crocodile oil is extracted from the fatty tissues of crocodiles. The crocodile fat used for the oil is derived from crocodile breeding farms, where thousands of crocodiles are raised yearly for meat and leather use. Crocodile fat is a product of commercial factory farming. Historically, for centuries, crocodile oil has been used by traditional skin practitioners across the globe, including Chinese traditional medicine, Southeast Asia, ancient Egypt, etc. Due to the oil's components, it's been used in skincare in recent times. The use of crocodile oil has invited criticism from the use of crocodile oil as there is an increased demand for cruelty-free and vegan-friendly beauty products in consumers of today's society. Critics of crocodile farming mentions the use of crocodile oil as a contribution to the diminishing number of crocodile species. A new study finds alligator wrestling attractions offer no wildlife conservation benefit. Tourist attractions for animals are popular across the United States and especially in Florida, but many are dangerous and ignore the welfare of the animals. A new study on alligator wrestling tourist attractions breaks myth of wildlife conservation and animal welfare. Alligator wrestling is a very common show at tourist attractions in Florida. Causes alligators substantial stress, according to a new scientific research study done by researchers at New York University. Researchers found wrestlers also forcibly pull alligators' jaws wide open, drag alligators around an arena, flip alligators onto their backs, and even poke at alligators in their eye sockets. The fact that individual alligators are repeatedly used in performances heightens the animal welfare concerns. When it comes to wildlife tourism, the public has started to learn that wild animal attractions like elephant rides and tiger or lion petting or feeding a tiger or a lion cub a bottle full of milk can be inhumane, but anyone barely pays attention to animals like crocodilians and alligators that are experiencing inhumane treatment right in our own backyards. So the author studied common alligator tourism practices and their impacts on animals using different videos and different tourist attractions. Our results show systemic welfare harm. 96% of alligator wrestling performances facilitated direct contact in the form of physical restraint by one or more human wrestlers, and as many as 96% of the videos did not show a suitable water or waterslide features for captive alligators. Furthermore, 12% of performances showed wrestlers flipping alligators onto their backs, while 16% showed wrestlers trying alligators' jaws shut, both of which are known to be acute stressors, the authors wrote. Just under half the videos mentioned environmental conservation, and much of the video commentary include misleading or contradictory information on wildlife conservation. High levels of forever chemicals likely make extremely high levels of forever chemical compounds and markers of immune disease in their blood. High levels of forever chemicals discharged into North Carolina's Cape Fear River from a chimeras plant and other industrial sources are likely making local alligators sick with the autoimmune disorders that appear similar to human disease like lupus. A new study finds. The peer-reviewed study published Thursday in the Frontliners of Toxicology journal tested blood from alligators in the Cape Fear watershed that had been exposed to pollution for decades. The peer-reviewed study published on Thursday in the Frontiers in Toxicology journal tested blood from alligators in the Cape Fear watershed that had been exposed to pollution for decades. The alligators showed extremely high levels of forever chemical compounds and markers of immune disease in their blood. Researchers discovered that in 2016, the Cape Fear River was polluted with staggering amounts of forever chemicals. Since then, independent and state research studies have found forever chemical pollution stemming from chimeras plants and other sources has thoroughly contaminated the environment across hundreds of square miles. The most unusual finding was the high number of unhealed or infected lesions on the animal's skin, the alligator skin, which said was super uncommon. Alligators' lesions usually heal quickly due to their immune system, and the issue suggested immune system interference. The pollution that turned Nile crocodiles to rubber in May 2008, rangers at South Africa's Kruger National Park found a devastating sight at the gorge, a ton of Nile crocodiles. Over the next few days, more than 30 other crocodiles were found with their bodies turned to rubber fat. Had no signs of injuries, and the rangers were utterly baffled as to how this happened and how these resilient creatures could suddenly. The rangers started an investigation to find out why so many crocodiles were mysteriously in the river. What they found was a truly shocking example of how capitalism has caused terrible effects on the natural world. The investigation into why so many crocodiles died was made into a documentary on National Geographic, I think, called Crocs That Turned to Rubber. When they cut open the dead crocodiles and did a necropsy/autopsy, they realized that the insides were consumed by an orange, really hard, rubbery fat. The crocodilians were unable to move, hunt, or swim. They recognized this as pancreatitis. Catfish